know everything I say is live, right? But if I click this speaker and turn it off, it won't be?
Yeah. Let me see what's recorded. To pop up.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that's going there. But I figured 30 minutes, a Q&A,
Okay.
an email blast went out.
So it's 12 o'clock, so I'm going to start. This is Mark Walmer, the attorney who runs recorderacer.net, a Lancaster County, Pennsylvania attorney with decades of experience in the criminal justice system. This is one of our first live streams. The reason was because I frequently get questions that I'd like to answer for a lot of people all at once. Also because the pardon process is slowly stretching out to be a 4 or 5 year process, which is longer than anybody anticipated. And so also I wanted to talk to some people if they could share their insights as to how the economy's doing, whether they're concerned about the economy, whether they're concerned about their jobs and their job prospects, and whether anybody's concerned about the advent of AI and how that could affect the workforce. Also, I think we're interested in knowing, since having a job is the number one contributor to stability and income and housing, and it was really great proof for the Board of Pardons that you're a good candidate and you should have your old mistakes erased. Employment's just key and central to everything, and that's one of the reasons why we partner with CareerLink and also with probation and parole. We want to make sure everybody has a copy of their record so that they know what can be cleared and when, with pardons and expungements and clean slate petitions. And so that's why we started to do this, and in fact we will do it again, along the lines of job employment services. We are keeping track of a job board. I actually started a subscription with a company called Honest Jobs, and Honest Jobs sends out a listing of jobs that are available in Pennsylvania. They send it out every Monday, which we're going to start promoting and sending out. Honest Jobs even says right on their website, which is honestjobs.com, they say second chances, felonies. I mean, if you have one of the nasty aggravated felonies, you're always going to run into problems, but it seems like Honest Jobs has sort of vetted employers that aren't scared of at least seeing a felony on a record. So I don't know what kind of jobs these are. I don't know what the salary ranges are. I'm just saying it's important to get good, stable employment and just start working as you're trying to pay off fines and costs, rebuild your life after conviction, and move towards a more stable future. So some of the areas that we're wondering if people would like services offered or links provided are things like resume building, career advice, career planning. I'm actually willing to interview people and ask ChatGPT if it thinks what it thinks somebody could do given somebody's various situations. And I don't think ChatGPT is the end all and be all. I think it's really interesting. I think it can give you thoughts that you didn't have on your own. And frankly, with a lot of my people that have criminal records, they don't really know who to turn to or what to ask or how to get started. So we're trying to remove some of those barriers. So So that's why we started doing this. Now, Anna's the one who's running the thing behind the scene. I guess we're looking for questions. I don't see any questions. I don't know if anybody's actually watching this or listening to this. And she apparently thinks I should just keep prattling for another 26 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Well, so apparently 10 people are watching. Thank you. Was that a message you sent me?
Yeah, send them through Teams.
Okay. Okay. I think I'm going to get my paddles. I just need the 3. This question was a summary offense from 20 years ago. Okay, so that was the only question. A summary offense from 20 years ago may qualify under Clean Slate. So that question suggests that a summary offense from 20 years ago might be hidden with Clean Slate. I would be interested to know whether or not the record even shows up on the UJS portal, because maybe it's already been hidden. But more importantly, a summary offense from 20 years ago doesn't need Clean Slate. You can go right to an expungement. Okay, summary offenses that are more than 5 years old can be expunged by filing a petition in the county of conviction, and then a judge would take it. They would give the district attorney about 30 days to review it and see if they objected to it or not. And then after 30 days, a judge would either schedule a hearing or he would sign the petition. And once he signs the order, it would get served upon law enforcement and the state police, and they would be ordered to actually destroy their records. And then they would end up with an affidavit of expungement from the Pennsylvania State Police at the end of the expungement process. But as I said, I would be interested in knowing if it's still showing up and where it's showing up for this person who says they have a summary offense from 20 years ago. Because it's expungible, it shouldn't be showing up anyway, but that's that. So now we have a question where somebody needs help expunging an M3 misdemeanor. So they're raising the question of expungement along with an M3 misdemeanor. But if that M3 misdemeanor was a conviction, it needs a pardon before it can be expunged. Okay? Any misdemeanor or felony conviction in Pennsylvania needs a pardon before it can be expunged unless you're over the age of 70. And so for this person who has an M3 conviction, well, they didn't say a conviction, they said an M3, can it be expunged? It can also be expunged if the charges were withdrawn or dismissed, if it is not a conviction, if it went into the ARD program, if it was withdrawn, dismissed, or otherwise disposed of, or if it was probation without conviction, ARD, any one of a variety of ways of dealing with misdemeanors, it can be expunged because it's not a conviction. So I need to know about this misdemeanor. Is it a conviction or not? If it is not a conviction, it can be expunged. If it is a conviction, it needs to be pardoned and go through the entire pardon process. I don't know if these paddles are helping or not, but they add some color to the screen anyway. Expungement versus pardon and the order of operations. So again, if somebody has a misdemeanor or a felony conviction, and if they are not 70 years old, if it's a misdemeanor or felony conviction, it needs a pardon from the governor before it can be expunged. So that's the order of operations. If it's a misdemeanor or felony conviction, it needs a pardon before it can be expunged. And actually, under the new Clean Slate 3.0 statute, if the governor issues a pardon, the state police are actually directed to clear the criminal record and to expunge it on their own. So the person should not have to pay for a lawyer to file an expungement petition. But they were having some difficulty with that process when it first rolled out. I think it might be working better now. So the order of operations is pardon first, that 3 to 5 year process. Get the votes you need out of the 5 board members. So out of the 5 board members, this screen's reversed. Out of the 5 board members, you need 3 of the 5 to vote in favor of your application after a 3 to 5 year review process to make it to the governor. And if you make it to the governor, then he's been issuing in general 70 to 80% of the applications that are recommended to him by the board. But again, the governor is former Attorney General, and he knows how to review a case, and if he issues a pardon, then your case is automatically expunged. These are good questions. Let's keep them coming. There are no bad questions. How long after a public hearing does it take to grant or deny a pardon, and what is your estimated time? And have you had any pardons granted from the October 24 public hearing from the governor yet? So a public hearing is the third step in the process. The pardon application's filed, then a couple of years go by, then the person is scheduled for an auditor's phone call, then a merit review is held to see if 2 out of the 5 board members will vote in their favor. If they get 2 out of the 5 votes, it goes to the public hearing. And if it's given a public hearing, that's where you need 3 out of the 5 votes, and then it goes to the governor. So a public hearing, we find out the votes from the board at the end of the morning session and the end of the afternoon session. So we find out what their vote is the same day of the presentation and the interview. How long does it take to grant or deny a pardon? So then if they recommend a pardon to the governor, in general, I think the governor has been taking about 3 to 6 months. And we have had pardons issue from the October 2024 public hearing session granted by the governor. That was October 2024, so that's over 6 months ago. And so how long after a public hearing does it take to grant or deny a pardon, and what is your estimated time? So if the pardon is recommended by the board, you find out right away. If the pardon is granted or denied by the governor, you usually find out in about 3 to 6 months. And yes, the governor is issuing pardons from the October 2024 time frame. Have the board members expedited the process now? I read recently that they've sped up the process. So the word expedite has a special meaning to practitioners and the Board of Pardons. The board on the Board of Pardons website lists a definition of expedited and things that will be expedited. In general, it started from misdemeanor marijuana cases and maybe even nonviolent marijuana felonies, that they would be reviewed more quickly. There are also some other nonviolent offenses which allegedly qualify. But what you need to be aware of is in the pardon application, there's a little box where you can check expedited. It doesn't matter if you check that box or not, because the Board of Pardons and their staff are going to review every application, and they'll determine in-house whether they want to expedite the review process of this pardon application. It might depend on if there's other cases to consider. It might depend on how old the crime is. It's not completely clear, so the answer is there's a definition on the Board of Pardons website about what cases can be expedited. I don't know if you can find that, Anna, or throw that up. But
It'll be in the description.
it is an internal procedure that they review. Also, the Board of Pardons has been expanding their staff since a year ago. And so I also think you should personally talk to your legislators, your senators, and your House of representatives, and you should encourage them to expand funding for the Board of Pardons and their staff process. But at the same time, that they also have they have revealed and launched an online application where you can sit online and fill out a pardon application and upload your documents.
You have a video for it.
Okay. We have a video for that process, apparently. We have been used to filing Board of Pardon applications with the board either by mail or by email, and I don't think we're going to change that process right away. We are also curious about the fact that the Board of Pardons online pardon filing website requires you to have all your documents so that you can fill this form out and complete it in one sitting. So you need to have your 6 documents requested from the clerk of courts and be ready to go. You have to have your letters of support scanned and ready to upload. You have to have maybe any degrees or diplomas or other things scanned and ready to upload. You have to have your Section 3 statement, which is a short explanation about how each of the crimes occurred. You have to have that filled out and ready to upload. And I would just sort of caution people here because the Board of Pardons gives you guidelines. They want you to explain how you were involved with the crime, what you did that you know was wrong, what kind of sentence you got. And they're not interested, I don't think, in hearing that you were wrongly accused or that the police planted drugs in your car. Even if that does happen, what they would want you to do is acknowledge that you were at least hanging around a certain corner and you had access possibly to drugs, and that you served a sentence and that you moved on with your life. So the Section 3 answer should be very short and concise. We draft ours by reading the affidavit of criminal complaint, which is where the story comes from that the cops write. On such and such a date, I was here with so-and-so. The police rolled up and searched my car and they found marijuana, something like that. You also, for the online application, have to have your multi-100-word Section 4 statement thought out, hopefully spell checked, hopefully grammatically correct. Because if you're just going to sit down and wing it, this is not an automatic process. Just because you're filling out an online application to apply for a pardon doesn't mean that if you just put content in all of the boxes that it's a guarantee. It's not a guarantee. They're going to carefully consider all the reasons why you want the pardon, everything you've done with your life since the pardon, and then they're going to go into this long process and vote on whether you keep moving forward or not. So, yay, there is an online pardon application that can be completed and filled out. It still requires a lot of work. It still requires requesting records from the clerks of courts, and so we have our eye on that as well. Also, the expedited process, this person qualified for expedited, that was 15 years ago. Is the expedited, 1.5 years ago, my cursor's in the middle. Is the expedited process also 3 to 5 years? No, the expedited process is faster than the regular pardon, but it isn't really clear how long that is. It was a year and a half, a year or two ago, but also there are more and more people asking for pardons, which is increasing the queue, increasing the conveyor belt of applications. And so the expedited process will move faster than most other applications, but it isn't clear how long that really is now. I would guess 1 to 2. The first clue that you're being expedited is you will be given a expedited questionnaire to fill out. And the expedited questionnaire basically is asking you to regurgitate the same information that was on your pardon application, but in a more condensed form. But the fact that you even received that expedited questionnaire means that you are moving towards the expedited track, and no matter how long it takes, it would be reviewed more quickly than the others. My pardon application was submitted August 2024. Does that mean I'll get a public hearing in 2028? How do I know if it's even being considered? Clarify submitted versus acknowledged versus filed. Those three words, submitted, acknowledged, and filed, are phrases that the Board of Pardons staff uses as they get an application, as they digitize it and acknowledge it. They would say it is submitted. I don't know exactly what part of the process is, but when they receive it, they'll tell you we've received it. Then I think they would send you an acknowledgement once they have verified that all the paperwork has been filed and it's not missing anything. And then they call it filed, which is confusing because when we send a pardon off to the Board of Pardons, we consider it filed. We filed it with the Board of Pardons. We might not get notice of their calling it filed until a year or something later. And so the Board of Pardons has these stages: submitted, acknowledged, filed, and then it goes into the process and starts getting reviewed. In your experience, how likely is it to clear a 31-year-old nonviolent felony for PWID? Was never in trouble before and haven't been since. Got out, married, kids, professional career, etc. You are an outstanding candidate. I don't know if the drug was marijuana or not. It sort of doesn't matter. The board is very familiar with nonviolent possession with intent to deliver charges. Even though they're felonies, most of them are nonviolent. Sometimes they're done by people who are addicted and they're dealing drugs in order to get their, sidekick. And they understand that, in which case they're going to be very interested in how long have you been clean. And of course, if you got out, got married, have kids and a professional career, you've been clean a very, very long time. The board's also familiar with sometimes in the cities, somebody doesn't see any way to make money other than dealing some drugs. And so there might not be a drug or alcohol addiction issue, but it's still just an economic crime in that case. 30 years is a long time. So what 30 years tells me maybe is if you were 18, maybe you're about 49, I think you're a great candidate. In my experience, it's very likely that a 31-year-old nonviolent felony for PWID will be recommended by the board, possibly by a vote of 5-0. And the fact that you haven't been in trouble before or after is just more of a green light to your case. I think in your particular case, you should throw your hat in the ring, get into that 3 to 5 year process, and I think you would be very happy a couple of years from now. Also along the way, make sure you do things if you can, like outreach to the school or community events or participating in fundraisers or just doing stuff. The Board of Pardons appreciates it very much when citizens give back to their community. And so that always looks good on a pardon application as well. So yeah, I don't think you need to wait any longer. Looks like a water break. Oh, here's a little note. What's close enough? At the 5-minute mark, mention how we will be back next Friday, same time. Visit our website to fill out the form and submit your questions personally. Does that mean we have a form on the website?
Yeah, they have a web comment area they can submit their questions.
They do, but that's different than the form where they can fill
Same
out.
thing.
It's the same thing. Okay, so there's one form on the website where you fill out your first name, last name, date of birth, email, and phone number. And if we get that information, we will research your record for free and give you a telephone interview to explain what can be cleared and when, just so that you have a path forward with the different processes, including pardons, expungements, and clean slate. And don't forget that everything that is clean slated or hidden through limited access still needs a pardon. Okay? Clean slate just hides the conviction from some background checks, from some employers and landlords. It does not remove that remnant like a pardon, which will result in an expungement, asking the state police and other law enforcement agencies to completely destroy their records. So if you go to the website recorderaser.net, and if you fill out the form, even if you don't have a record, you can just type in the comment section or your story section, just say, hey, I want to tune in next week. This question's really on my mind. Nobody will ever be identified by name or by person. We have confidential relationships that we're used to maintaining. And although in this particular situation, I'm looking at nameless questions, the point is everybody should be able to pursue their questions and get answers in a confidential, no names, no kind of questions asked environment. Clean Slate has been around since last year. Clean Slate 3.0 was passed in 2023, but they started implementing it in June of 2024. That's when the part where the state police have to automatically expunge your records started being rolled out. And that's when actually they opened up these statutory definitions of what can be cleared and when. In general, Clean Slate says if you have a single nonviolent misdemeanor that's over 7 years old, it can probably be hidden, in general. If you have a nonviolent felony, a single nonviolent felony that's over 10 years old, including the PWID and drug felonies, it can probably be hidden. The trick comes after people start getting multiple offenses with multiple felonies and overlapping misdemeanors. That complicates the analysis and it makes it harder to file a clean slate petition. They need to each be personally examined. The other situation is that if you have a crime against a person, an assault crime, those aren't going to be hidden. Those are all going to need a pardon. If you have even an endangering welfare charge, misdemeanor of the first degree is going to need a pardon. So Clean Slate can hide certain non-violent, non-offensive misdemeanors after 7 years, certain felonies after 10, and there's other exclusions and provisions, and we should probably do a short 10-minute overview of Clean Slate sometime. So that's that. So Clean Slate's been around being implemented since last June. Was anything automatically expunged before that? Well, I don't think so. I know the rules of expungement: summary offenses after 5 years, underage consumptions after you reach the age of 21. Those are all filed by petition because we have to get a court order on the front page of the petition telling the state police to go and clean their record. If certain old summary offenses just disappeared before Clean Slate, it might have just been because of some computerized talk between the algorithms. I wouldn't even necessarily be sure that it's absolutely gone. The only way to know that something is absolutely gone, in our opinion, is to file to the Pennsylvania State Police and ask for a PSP, a full access review, which the state police will take a couple of months, and they will send a complete overview of everything on your Pennsylvania record. And now that I said everything, some things shows up in the UJS portal that the state police don't have. Some things show up on the state police that aren't on the UJS portal. It actually takes a comparison of all these different research indexes in order to get a complete record. So you can also, if you want to, you can go get your own PSPFAR. You have to fill out a form called an SP-170. If you go to the barracks, I think they let you do that. You have to give them 20, 25 bucks, and then you'll have your own record. If you have a record and you scan it and send it to us, we will review it for free to see what can be cleared and when. What happens if I do not get the board votes needed? Or if I do, but the governor doesn't sign off? Am I out of luck for good, or can I just reapply? So let's take these one by one. If you don't get the board votes that you need, then you are denied, and the rules say you have to wait 1 year, and then you can ask again. There is no downside to that. That's simply the way it is. If you get denied at any point, you have to wait a year, and then you can get back in line. If you do get the board votes, but then the governor doesn't sign off on it, that's a little trickier because the governor actually doesn't have to do anything. But obviously, if he's sitting on it for 6 to 9 to 12 months, I'm actually not aware of a way to check on it. I don't know that the lieutenant governor would really be able to do anything. The governor is an executive, and he grants these things after he does what he does. So that's the tricky one. It would be better if the governor doesn't sign it and says you're denied, because then you're back to waiting a year before you ask again. So I think in my experience, the governor has been accepting or issuing pardons or not, and he has not just been sitting on them indefinitely. But that's a really good question, and I think it's one that we should remember and see if we can't ask the Board of Pardons. And also, if you're denied once, you have to wait a year and reapply. If you're denied twice, you have to wait 2 years and reapply. And that's what those rules are. So it's 12:31. Those were really, really great questions. I'm actually pleased that people actually listen to me answer questions and chat at a camera. It's good information. It's very confusing. Clean slate, expungements, and pardons. But we'll keep doing this, and with good questions, we'll keep getting answers that hopefully will be of use for everyone. Okay? So signing off, July 11th, 2025, 12:32. Have a great day.